Good evening, everyone. I'm truly honored to welcome you to the 7th annual JUD Talks. Hi, my name is Rachel Yu. I serve as an assistant professor in the Communication Arts program here, as well as the director of the JUD Talks. In our program, students master the arts of storytelling and meaning-making through various media, such as journalism, television shows, films, podcasts, PR, strategic communications, and, of course, public speaking. Proverbs 12:18 teaches us, the words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Inspired by these words, I believe that God has endowed us with an ability to use words wisely and effectively. While the JUD Talk is framed as a public speaking competition, its essence lies in sharing various ideas that resonate and inspire. A.J. Gordon, our founder, the founder of Gordon College, was an educator, a pastor, and a hymn composer who recognized the profound influence of the arts and the power of words. In his honor, we gather here to share a myriad of ideas in this open forum. So tonight, I feel so proud to present our 5 finalists who have distinguished themselves through rigorous auditions and the countless hours of preparation. So they are here to inspire, motivate, and challenge us with their insights and their eloquence. Each will explore diverse ideas, broadening our perspectives. Before we begin, please be advised that some presentations might discuss sensitive topics, including instances of trafficking, sexual violence, and addiction. So if you feel a little of the contents overwhelming at any point, please feel free to step out or excuse yourself as needed. Finally, none of this would be possible without the dedications of many. I'd like to show my gratitude to our staff members at Adams School, Sarah Jahorodny, over there, and Rachel Bobby, and to our CTS team for their invaluable support. Okay, without further ado, now I'm going to hand things over to my colleague, Professor Morgan.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Gordon College. Yeah. So it's been a total delight for me to work with the students who auditioned, and we did some coaching. And I want them to feel your energy. So on the count of 3, I want you to shout out, "Go JUD Talks" 3 times. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Go JUD Talks! Go JUD Talks! Go JUD Talks! Yeah, awesome. So, wow. Love it. Raise your hand if you have ever heard of the word glossophobia. Yes, thank you, David. Well, then it's my pleasure to give you a 1-hour lecture on glossophobia. No, sorry, just kidding. Glossophobia, fear of public speaking. Anybody with me on that? Yeah. Surveys show 70% of Americans are more afraid of speaking in public than death. No one's going to die here tonight. But we are truly excited that these 5 especially have really conquered some of their anxieties and fears. And I tell you, you have an awesome lineup of amazing speeches. I am just so proud of you guys. So I'm going to toss it over to Chrisanna.
Good evening. My name is Chrisanna. I was the 2023 Gordon College JUD Talk winner, as well as the host, of last year's JUD Talks. So Professor Morgan and Professor Yu kind of just took what I was going to say, but JUD Talks are our annual TED Talk style speech competition. Each of these contestants have spent countless hours preparing, perfecting, and being coached to present the 5 amazing speeches you're going to hear tonight. And although that we're here to learn things, this is also a competition, and competitions require judges. So our judges for tonight are Abby Durkin. Abby is an aquatics director and graduate assistant to the chapel office. She graduated last year with Biblical Studies and Christian Ministries majors, both. And then she was our 2024 JUD Talk winner. We have Professor Mark Stevick, he's a professor of English here. And we have Professor Mandy Liu, who is an assistant professor of economics. So I know that y'all did not come here to watch me speak, so I think I'll go ahead and introduce our first speaker for the night. I have too many papers. Charis Guildford, Learning Humility, a Discovery Experience. Please welcome Charis.
Learning humility, a discovery experience. Did you know that 2 out of every 3 of Gordon College students are not excited about taking discovery? Practically, that means that 2/3 of the student population are not excited about one of Gordon's core requirements. There are, of course, a couple of reasons for this. First of all, it's a mandatory 0-credit course. That means that although students must take this course in order to graduate, their credit numbers bring them no closer to graduation. This can be frustrating. Additionally, discovery is somewhat unconventional. Most colleges do not have all of their first years spend 3 hours in the woods in small group settings during their first year of college. This can feel somewhat scary. And I remember my first discovery class. I was not excited either. In fact, during my senior year of high school, when I was writing pro-con lists for the colleges I was trying to choose between, the outdoor education core requirement of Gordon squarely made the con list. On my first day of discovery, we were sitting right here in the McDonald Auditorium. I sat as far back as the instructors would let me, which is a testament to my reluctance, as I am usually a confirmed front row sitter. At the end of that class, we all walked out to the woods where we would be meeting from there on out. The one thought I remember from that day was, how on earth will I make it here for my previous class? And how will I make it back to the library afterwards in time for my work shift? That one thought was fear. But the thing is, discovery didn't leave me in that place of fear for myself and my schedule. In fact, it taught me valuable things about both of those. And that's what I want to share with you today. According to the Discovery website, research shows that challenge course experiences such as discovery help students gain confidence in their ability to overcome life's challenges, interpersonal skills needed to work with others, and a greater understanding of their own strengths and weaknesses. Essentially, what that's saying is that discovery is all about 2 things: connection and confidence. Here's how that worked out for me. First of all, connection. The other night, I was eating dinner in Lane, as I often do, and I passed by a table full of students. The thing that stuck out to me, though, is that all of these students were on their phones. No talking, no "hi, how was your day?" Just scrolling. Together, yes, but self-absorbed. In our present day and age, we spend a lot of time thinking about ourselves. By and large, this grows out of the way we spend a lot of time on our screens. Screens reflect who we are back at us, both on their shiny surfaces and through the content with which we engage. Social media is referred to as an echo chamber. On Zoom calls, it's the image of ourselves we watch. We spend hours painstakingly crafting emails because we're concerned with how we will be perceived. This impacts how we engage with life. We would rather interact digitally than face-to-face. Interaction is hard, and there's a very real chance for failure. Surely digital interaction is enough. Digital interactions don't have to lead to real, physical, tangible experiences if we don't want them to. There's no need to think further than, this is cool. There's no need to think, this is hard. But the thing is, digital interaction isn't enough, is it? Discovery moves students into that hard place of interacting face-to-face, no screens allowed. Yes, it's awkward sometimes, but it's also worthwhile. You see, as time went on, I got to know my classmates. I am embarrassed to say that it took me more than half the quad to learn their names. Gabby, Elida, Christina, Julie, Eliana, Gavin, Hannah, and Kate, Daniel, Elizabeth, and Lenora. Something so simple, and yet so hard. Forming connection with them in person required looking beyond the screens, required looking beyond myself. Yes, it was hard, but it was also beautiful. So if that's the connection piece, what of confidence? A part of the discovery experience is a weekend hiking trip. I was so nervous about that trip. As an urban girl from Knoxville, Tennessee, let's just say I did not have a lot of previous hardcore outdoor experience. Bugs, leaves, rocks, not my thing. And it all came to a head for me when we were climbing the mountain. It was fall, and the trail was covered in slippery leaves. Further complicating matters, at times that trail would turn to nothing more than piles of rock. I don't know if you've ever tried scrabbling up leaf-covered rocks, but take it from me, it's not easy. In fact, it's downright frustrating. The only path forward is to watch the person in front of you, to see where the leaves aren't too deep or too slippery to step. Remember the connection piece? Every step took confidence, but at times, in spite of my best efforts, I slipped anyway. But that's where I found the beauty. You see, I was surrounded by people who were paying attention, who caught me and encouraged me to keep going, and I was able to do the same for them. It was truly an exercise in confidence for each and every one of us that day. So yes, discovery taught me connection and confidence, but there's something more that underlies both of these things: humility. Standing on the top of the mountain that day looking down, I felt so small. Me and my problems started to fade into the background. Things like my commitments, my schedule, my self-image, it all started to shrink. Not that these things weren't important or that I somehow forgot about them entirely, but that something else started to matter more. I saw that day, standing on top of a mountain in the dead middle of nowhere, surrounded by friends, that in spite of what my fears for myself or my schedule might tell me, I was not alone in this. It took humility to look beyond myself, to look beyond my screens, to see the people standing right next to me. But the connection and confidence that discovery teaches enabled me to have that realization. That day, standing together, each and every one of us were able to acknowledge something bigger than ourselves, something as a group, not as individuals. And for me, that's what humility is all about. And that was the real lesson of discovery. And that's why today I learn names, I learned faces and places and people, and I am still learning. And my invitation to all of you today is to learn alongside me. Together we can look up and out and beyond. Discovery may not have been your favorite class ever. I'm talking to 2/3 of you here. But don't let that lack of enthusiasm keep you from learning and remembering the lessons that it teaches. Connection and confidence united in humility. I would like to close with the words of Colossians 3:12. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. There are so many ways that we can live this verse out right here on campus. Go for a walk, set down the screen, learn someone's name, maybe climb a mountain. And in all of these things, may we lean on one another as we discover what it is to live in confidence and connection with humility. Thank you.
Thank you, Charis. Next up, I'd like to invite Noelle Ledford with her speech, Glass Voices.
We enter this world knowing that we will likely outlive our parents, that it may take us years to find a life partner, and that other relationships may change or fade over time. But the sibling relationship is the only one with the potential to last from birth until death. I've thought about that a lot over the past year. Last spring, I had the opportunity to study abroad in Italy. It was amazing, through Orvieto, through Gordon. In late May, my parents called me to let me know that my oldest sister, Abigail, would be entering end-of-life care. Now, this was not unexpected news for me, but it was not the easiest thing to hear either. I came home a few weeks later, expecting the worst. I never would have guessed that it would take her 7 long, painful months to pass away on January 3rd of 2025. She passed from multiple debilitating and unique chronic illnesses that took from her ability to process nutrition properly. And this started when she was very young, 8 or 9 years old. I can hardly remember a time that she was not in pain. In fact, some of my first memories were of her suffering. As she grew up and her symptoms became more severe, her treatments became more invasive, it became more difficult for me to live alongside of her. Her condition began to affect the way I saw myself, the way I treated myself, my family, even my friends and surrounding communities. It became a very difficult burden for me to bear or to communicate about. It was not until I came here to Gordon that I was able to take the time and space to process why is it that my relationship with my sister has become one of the most foundational parts of my identity. Who here has heard of the term glass child? Raise of hands. All right, put your hand down if it's because I told you. Keep them up, put it down. If I told you already, you don't count. Okay, look around. We got a couple people, but generally it's not a very well-known term. And that is because it was only actually coined and popularized in 2010 by, ironically enough, another TED Talk speaker, Alicia Maples, in her TED Talk, Recognizing Glass Children. Now, glass child is a term for the sibling of an individual with a disability or chronic illness. More specifically, glass child syndrome refers to a set of behaviors that can be attributed to an imbalance of attention between siblings in a situation where one requires more constant care from their caregivers and communities. Is anybody here an oldest child? Again, raise your hands. Okay, oldest kids in the house. If you're not an oldest child, like me, I'm the youngest, I invite you to put your feet into the shoes of your oldest sibling and consider just for a second. As oldest children, know what it feels like to exist in an imbalance of attention. You see, oldest children are forced to become independent more rapidly because when a baby is born, it demands attention. And a firstborn understands this. They know that they must take care of themselves, and so they quietly learn to provide for themselves in ways they'd never done before. The thing is, in that sibling relationship, it should balance back out. And that is not the case for glass children. Now, before we go any further, I want to introduce you guys to my friend here. This is a Prince Rupert's drop. It's a scientific phenomenon where you drop a piece of molten glass into cold water, and it has unique structural characteristics. You see, a Prince Rupert's drop can withstand immense amounts of pressure. In fact, it's 100,000 pounds per square inch. That is approximately equivalent to 5 elephants standing on a single coin. Despite this, the drop will easily explode into a fine powder if broken or cut. We see a similar dynamic personified in glass children. Formed under unique, stressful circumstances, glass children learn quickly that they must always be strong. We become incredibly resilient, self-sufficient, hyper-independent, and emotionally mature. In spite of this, there are vulnerabilities that are imperceivable, much like a Prince Rupert's drop, because we are living in the constant tension of incredible strength and imperceivable vulnerability. What is it that we do with the Prince Rupert's drops? We smash them with hammers, we crush them under hydraulic presses, marveling at their strength, knowing that they are vulnerable, but ignorant to just how bad that damage could be. You see, children have the opportunity to live life simply and joyfully. Hate, isolation, fear, these are all learned behaviors. They're reactions to negative experiences. They take away from our ability to love, trust, and communicate with each other. When a child experiences something traumatic that takes away from their ability to live life boldly, it leaves an invisible wound that without guidance or counseling can become infected. And while a minor infection can be treated on your own, we know that a major infection left untreated can ruin your life. Simultaneously, as we are dealing with this trauma, we are also curating a false image of ourselves, an image of somebody who is invincible, independent, strong, humble, but brave, and perfect. People-pleasing is a central characteristic of glass child syndrome, stemming from the belief that our needs are invalid and that we will never truly be understood or heard. As a result of this, we begin to internalize the belief that we must work to earn people's love. And that belief can leave people feeling so unseen, so unloved, and so bitterly alone. On top of this, believing that you have no voice or value as a child can cause you to spiral into feelings of hopelessness, of depression, and most importantly, in the situation of the glass child, of guilt. Guilt not only for living in this way that feels like a lie, but also for harboring all of this bitterness and hatred in your heart with no place for it to go. I tried to blame shift, find somewhere that it belonged. And the only place ultimately that I could find that I believed deserved all of the bitterness and resentment was in me. So why don't glass children speak up? Why aren't we talking about this? If this is really such a big issue, I'm sure that somebody should have said something by now. But because we are all so busy curating these false images of ourselves, afraid to show any vulnerability to even our families, it is very difficult to communicate to people just how hard this situation is. There's an entire population of people out there who don't believe that their voices matter, that their experiences are valid. It was not until Abby began to die that I believed that I was justified in speaking about this. That was what gave me the courage to finally start doing something. I told you earlier she passed away on January 3rd. What I did not tell you is that on January 2nd, my other sister, Rachel, got married. That was a difficult 48 hours. It forced everybody around us to ask the question, how do we hold the lives of both of these incredible women in balance with each other? That is what I am passionate about finding that balance. That starts for glass children in finding the difference between emotional repression and emotional regulation. We believe that by pushing all of these feelings down, by getting them out of the way and never letting anybody hear them, that we're protecting the people around us. But when you internalize negative emotions, they begin to eat you up inside until you are hurting everybody around you, including yourself. So what can you do about this? What we need from you is for you to hear us, to sit and listen. And more than that, we need you to hear intentionally. We don't need grand gestures or fleeting words, hours and hours of your time. No, we need you to take those extra few moments in your day to ask intentional questions, to be more aware, and to be more thoughtful. Because 5 minutes is all that it takes to tell somebody, to show them that they are loved, that they are worthy, and that they are not alone. To be heard is to be known. Thank you for hearing me.
Noelle. Next up, we have Bethany Smith. Everyone can dance and everyone should dance. Please welcome Bethany.
In middle school, I hated dances. I would walk into this room filled with people I love, and I would count down the seconds until I could go home. I didn't encounter another dance space until my freshman year of college. I used to go to a school called Eastern Nazarene College. I hope you guys have heard of it. Yeah. Every fall, we had something called a fiesta night. What we would do is a group of students would bring out these string lights, and they would string them all over this patio outside our Mann Student Center. Then we would bring out a DJ, and that DJ would play Latin music for hours into the evening. He would play it so loud, you could hear it from every corner of our tiny campus. This is something that everybody in our school looked forward to all year. My freshman year, however, I'm pretty sure I was the only one who was dreading it. I had decided back in middle school, not only that I couldn't dance, but that I never would be able to dance. So my freshman year, the idea of dancing in front of a group of people was not my thing. Looking back on that night now, however, it has turned into one of my favorite stories from college. It was a beautiful picture of community at ENC. You had people who had never known each other before, laughing and dancing together. One of my now best friends actually taught me the basic steps to bachata that night, and it is those basic steps that have carried me into my dance story today. Several months ago, I found myself at a new school and in a totally new environment. A couple girls that night, a few weeks after that environment, invited me out to a Latin dance studio. As soon as I walked into this room, I was taken back to that night at ENC. It was so warm and welcoming, and everyone was connecting with each other. We kept going night after night, and in no time, I knew the names and the stories of almost all of the regular dancers there. They are now some of my favorite people. If you had told me freshman year that I would be going out dancing regularly, I probably would have laughed at you. Now, however, I don't think I could imagine my senior year without it. So now you all know a little bit about my own dance story, but I would like to share with you a bigger dance story. How many of you guys know the song Bracho de Amor? It is the first ever released bachata song. It was written by José Manuel Calderón. He is known for his deep baritone voice and his love for music. He grew up in the Dominican Republic. However, bachata started much earlier than when he released his song in 1962. It has a deep history in the Dominican Republic. Politics in the DR were characterized by the authoritative dictatorship of Rafael Trujillos. Trujillos was known for dividing the DR. He divided it between the poor and the rich. The thing about bachata is it originally started out in bars. It was areas that were majorly filled with, poor people. And because of that, Trujillos gave it a new name. He gave it the name, the dance of the poor, and he associated it with crime. Bachata is just one example of how he continually took the voice away from the people. Despite that, however, people didn't stop dancing. In fact, it became a representation of empowerment for the poor in the DR. Trujillo died in 1961, and that marked the end of censorship with the end of a dictatorship. Bachata exploded from that moment out. Now, today, it is seen as a crucial part of Dominican culture. Bachata itself brings together many different styles. It brings together rhythms from West Africa, styles from the West, and traditions from a Taíno culture, which is an indigenous population in the Dominican Republic, in Puerto Rico, and in Cuba. It also brings together a couple different dance styles, which I hope you guys have heard about already. One of them is salsa, bolero, tango, zouk, and more recently, hip-hop. Recently, the UN Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization named bachata an intangible cultural heritage of humanity, recognizing the power that it has had in bringing people together. It's crucial to understand this history when looking at dance. But I also want you guys to understand the individual stories that are represented by every person when they dance. Chiara Giovanni, a PhD candidate, writes that stories are told and retold by dancers every time their bodies move. My goal here tonight is to give each and every one of you the ability to go out and learn those individual stories. And to do that, I would like to teach you guys the basic steps to bachata. So if I could get you guys to stand up, I would love that. Oh, good. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna teach you the basic steps, and then they're gonna play one of my favorite bachata songs, and then you guys can get in the rhythm. So for those of you out there who are thinking, oh my goodness, I can't dance, I've never danced, I have so much faith that you're gonna figure it out. The thing about the basic steps is they are pretty simple. It is an 8-count dance, and typically it is danced with a partner. So those of you who are on the edges, you can find a partner, but also you don't have to, no pressure. Typically, there is a closed hold and an open hold. Oh yeah, no. So typically you dance out like this and you hold hands in an open hold. So it's an 8-count dance. So what that means is you do 8 steps and you repeat those in the rhythm of the music as it goes. So just follow along with me. It goes 1, 2, 3, and then tap, and then 1, 2, 3, and then tap. 1, 2, 3, tap. And y'all can throw a little bit of hip in there if you want. No pressure. Okay. I'm so impressed. You guys are so good. Okay. All right, if we can get a little bit of music in here so y'all can get in the rhythm. Yeah, no. Okay. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you guys. I can't even explain to you how happy that made my heart. You guys are all wonderful. Okay, so now I've explained to you the history of bachata. I've shared a little bit of my own story, and hopefully you guys have learned a little bit of the basic step, I hope. So why does this actually matter to each and every one of you that are sitting in here right now? It all comes down to connection. Right now, our society is facing deep, deep divisions. And what do we do about that? We need to come together. We need to connect with the people who are here with us. So I want you to imagine that you're in a room, and maybe that song is playing. There's a beautiful dance floor, and you are completely comfortable. What moves would you make? Who would you talk to, and what would that feel like? In that experience, there are 3 points of connection that I think are crucial. The first is with your body. Dancing is so good for you. It helps you with your motor functions, it helps with your agility, your endurance, and your muscle dexterity. Additionally, it is a way to move your body in a positive and comfortable way. And it doesn't have to happen in a dance studio. It can happen in the 15 minutes that you're making dinner, or in the 60 seconds you're brushing your teeth. It brings positive joy into your life in these little areas throughout your life all day long. Additionally, your identity. It has been proven that dancing can help your brain functioning. Further, it improves your body image and your confidence. Dancing is a way to express what you might not be able to express verbally. It's a way for you to tap into really who you are and express that. And finally, my personal favorite, dancing is all about community and the connections with those around you. As a Christian, I believe that we're all called into community. But what does this really look like? I strongly believe it involves investing in the people that are right in your circle, but I also mean that it means going out to the people that might be a little bit farther outside your circle. I believe that it means learning their stories too. And dance is just one way to do that. Going to a studio puts you into conversations with people that you won't typically be talking to. You're given the opportunity to learn more stories than what you would typically be able to. Finally, these diverse stories are what makes life so beautiful. It gives you the ability to empathize with other people. It gives you the ability to connect over similarities and connect over differences. I strongly urge you guys tonight to keep going out and learning people's stories. And I urge you to keep pursuing your now own budding dance skills. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for that fun little dance break. That was fun. I'd like to now invite up Lacey McIntyre with her speech, The Cost of a Click, Pornography and Its Inherent Relation to Human Trafficking.
Pornography. A word that may be making a lot of you squirm in your seat right now as I'm saying it, and a topic that we don't often enjoy discussing. But tonight I'm going to be talking about pornography quite a bit, And so to break the ice and clear the air, I thought we could all just say pornography out loud together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Pornography. Great job. In 2016, the Journal of Sex Research found that 93% of men and 62% of women have come across viewing pornography at some points in their life. Many of you here tonight have come across pornography voluntarily, involuntarily, and some of you here tonight may still be engaging with pornography actively. This discussion in no way is intended to persecute or shame users of pornography, but instead I hope to have an honest and gracious discussion about a reality that many of us are not aware of. This reality is that pornography is very closely linked to human trafficking. Now, I think it's easy for us to view porn in a light manner because it's consumed through a screen. We use this screen to divide us from the men and women in these videos, and we tell ourselves that they signed up for this. This is their job, they're being paid for this is all right, they're enjoying it even. But unfortunately, this is often not true. Pornography is not a victimless industry. Traffickers use pornography to exploit their victims, and our continued demand for content fuels this abusive cycle. But if we truly understood what was happening behind the camera, would we keep watching it? My hope for tonight is that after this discussion, we all might be able to reconsider the ramifications that porn has on the people of our world. Now, the industry would not be so successful if it were not for our world's vicious demand. All around us, society is encouraging us to engage with pornography however we want, as long as we feel good. We're told that watching porn is healthy for our bodies, and it's sexually liberating for those who are making it and those who are consuming it. But that's not true. And to believe that your porn consumption can be passive and harmless is to believe a lie from the enemy. While my focus tonight is more on the victims, porn proposes an equally serious problem for consumers. The American Psychological Association, as well as other esteemed research journals, have found that users of porn are more likely to sexually objectify and dehumanize others. They are more likely to express an intent to rape. They are less likely to intervene during sexual assault, and they are more likely to engage in violent sexual behavior. And for consumers, it's only natural to want more. Watching videos quickly becomes addicting, and videos often become more violent in nature. Watching alone is no longer enough to satisfy the desire, and watchers often become buyers of sex. Not to say that every watcher will become a buyer, but we have to see the relationship between the two. Now, I want you all to close your eyes for a moment. When I've been talking about trafficking, what are you envisioning? I'm going to take a guess and say that you're thinking of a girl taken in the night, smuggled into an unmarked van, driven across the border, never to be seen again. You can open your eyes. While this version of trafficking is absolutely a reality, a lot of trafficking is happening right out in the open, whether on a busy street corner of Boston or through a website online. And just as pornography ultimately is an issue of demand and supply, trafficking is as well. If our world was not so hungry with a demand for people, we wouldn't have an excess supply of people being sold. But the digital world of pornography has completely changed the game for traffickers. Traffickers no longer need to go out and get one customer off the street to come and purchase sex from their victim. They only need to take one video, upload that online, and somewhat instantly, they have gained millions of customers. Many women who have survived trafficking have spoken about the trauma that comes from knowing videos of their abuse and rape are still online, being watched, being shared, and being downloaded and saved. In 2016, 22 women testified to being tricked and manipulated into making pornography for a private company for 11 years. While their videos were active, they had gained over 600 million views. These girls were college students. They were our age. They were flown out to a fake modeling job, and they were aggressively forced into making pornography. They were given copious amounts of alcohol and drugs in order to sign a contract, and simultaneously promised that these videos would never be posted online. Not only were they posted online, but they were also personally sent to the girls' families and friends. Another victim, a 15-year-old girl who had been missing for over a year, was found when her abuse videos began to circulate online. I want you all to think back for a moment to when you were 15. What was your life like then? For many of you, you had just begun high school. Perhaps you were practicing and studying for your driver's license exam, probably spending as much time as possible with your friends, and maybe hoping that today was the day your crush at school might notice you. Now think about this 15-year-old's world. Authorities were involved and contacted, and they were able to find her through an investigation, but this was only after 58 videos of her abuse were posted to Pornhub. 58 videos, and until authorities were involved, Pornhub insisted she was a verified 18-year-old actress. She was 15. Even one of the industry's most famous entertainers later shared that she too was trafficked into this career. At the age of 16, Jenna was coerced and groomed into making pornography by her ex-boyfriend and his father, and years later, she was doing pretty well. She was winning awards. She was making a lot of money, and to some, she had become a household name. In the early 2000s, Jenna left the industry and shared what really was going on in her autobiography. I think Jenna's story should be particularly provoking to us because she was the picture of what it looked like to have wealth, liberation, and success in the porn industry, and yet we have to ask, if one of the industry's most famous entertainers got her start through being trafficked as a minor, how many more share her story? And are we okay with knowing this and still watching it? Our contributions to the pornography and trafficking industry pose serious spiritual consequences. I shared a statistic earlier about the prevalence of men and women coming across pornography, but I'd like for us to look at another one. Just last fall, the Barna Research Group found that 54% of practicing Christians report consuming pornography occasionally, compared to 68% of non-Christians. 62% of practicing Christians agree a person can regularly consume porn and live a sexually healthy life. We seem to have lost all of our self-control and completely given in to the desires of our flesh. Pornography pushes an agenda full of distorted relationships, sex, and love. But God created intimacy perfectly to be shared within a covenant marriage, and pornography and trafficking took this intimacy and turned it into an individual act of instant self-gratification. Intimacy was never meant to be purchasable wherever you want, whenever you want, and sex was never meant to be exploitative and coercive. Sex was never meant to be separated from love, and if you are searching for fulfillment, satisfaction, and comfort, pornography is never where you're going to find it. Pornography has never been a real representation of what sex is. It's always been a caricature, full of perfect lighting, perfect camera angles, and any fantasy that a consumer could imagine. Please hear me tonight when I say that it is not real. The image of God is degraded in pornography, and women are not upheld as equals with dignity, beauty, and worth. And when we consume this content, whether through watching it or simply tolerating it, we join in diminishing the inherent value that every human being has, made in the image of our Creator. Gordon College, tonight I want to ask, where do we go from here as Christians? How do we step into this mess? For starters, I think we need to be having this conversation so much more on our campus. We need to be wrestling with topics of pornography and trafficking in our classes, in our chapel, and over the dinner table at Lane. My fellow students, pornography is the plague of our generation. Will we be known as the ones who stopped watching and killed the demand? Or will we continue to idly sit by? To those of you who may be thinking that on the North Shore of Massachusetts, in a wealthy area, we're far from any trafficking. But please let me remind you that trafficking is a global issue and it is happening everywhere. But when we're having these conversations, let us speak with grace and compassion. Grace and compassion for those who have struggled with an addiction in the past and those who are actively fighting one now. Let us be firmly rooted in Jesus Christ, remembering that his mercy and forgiveness at the cross has not run out for the addict or the trafficker. There are two verses that come to mind that I'd like us to look at. We can read the first one together out loud. Romans 8:1. There is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ. And I'll read Hebrews 4:16. Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. We are not alone in this. Let us also examine ourselves and take responsibility for our actions, guarding our hearts, our eyes, our minds, our souls from the things that we're consuming, from how we're viewing one another, and from the conversations that we're having. Lastly, let us find hope knowing that we have a guider, a helper, and a friend in the Holy Spirit. Let us turn to the Spirit for healing for ourselves and for the world around us. Jesus came to set the captives free. As Christians, we have an open invitation into the work of the kingdom of God that is being done here on this earth. Will we say yes to this invitation, or will we continue to fund the chains that hold them down? Thank you.
So much. And last but certainly not least, we have Brenna Lewis with Science Cannot Prove Anything.
What does our society put their trust in? Money, possessions, power, fame. All of these are relevant answers, but the one that always amazes and baffles me is science. I can never understand how someone can put their full trust in something that is not certain. One of my favorite teachers drilled the mantra, "Science cannot prove anything," into my head through many years of his science courses. In my short time here at Gordon, I have already seen the wonderful community that strives to challenge and encourage people to widen their horizons and contemplate ideas that go against society. Because of that, I am here to challenge you that science cannot prove anything, and that there is someone who we can 100% trust and believe in. Science, as defined by the Cambridge Dictionary, is, quote, "the careful study of the structure and behavior of the physical world, especially by watching, measuring, and doing experiments, and the development of theories to describe the results of these activities," end quote. Prove, as defined by the Oxford English Dictionary, is, quote, "to establish as true, to make certain." With these definitions in mind, I would like to address this topic with 3 points. First, observations are limited. Second, conclusions can be doubted. And finally, a rebuttal to the idea that science has proven things. Now, before I jump in, I want to clarify that I am not saying that science is unreliable. On the contrary, I have type 1 diabetes and a variety of other health issues, so I understand the need of science in our community today. I would not be standing here today if it was not for the invention of synthetic insulin. Synthetic insulin was created by conducting many experiments and observing their outcomes, like most other medicines. However, science is not limited to just medicine. Consider Thomas Edison. He created the incandescent light bulb with many experiments. Even after the invention of the incandescent light bulb, there have been many advancements. As scientists learned more about electricity, they were able to create the LED light bulb. All of these advancements, created through science, help to demonstrate my first point, that observations are limited. This distinction is crucial. Because observations are limited, there is only so much we as humans can observe. In the example of Edison and the light bulb, he could not have created the LED light bulb first because he did not have all the knowledge or materials to create it. With the knowledge and materials available to him at that time, he was only able to create the incandescent light bulb. Again, it was after more scientific discoveries that scientists were able to create the LED light bulb. We will never know everything about the world, even with the most advanced experiments a scientist can run. It is because of this that observations are limited. We will always be learning more. I am sure there will be yet another new light bulb after years and years of more scientific discovery. Ethan Siegel demonstrates this point of limited observations by saying, quote, "We also can't observe or measure everything. Even if the universe weren't subject to the fundamental quantum rules that govern it, along with all its inherent uncertainty, it wouldn't be possible to measure every state of every particle under every condition all the time," end quote. Because scientists' observations are limited, their conclusions can be doubted. Which leads to my next quote, conclusions can be doubted. If a scientist can only know so much about their field, how can they be certain their conclusions are 100% true? Siegel goes on to clarify, quote, In science, you never know when your postulates, rules, or logical steps will suddenly cease to describe the universe, end quote. Siegel goes on to clarify, quote, you never know when your assumptions will suddenly cease to describe the universe. And you never know when the rules you successfully applied for situations A, B, and C will successfully apply for situation D. Because observations are limited, conclusions can be doubted. Scientists cannot make valid conclusions with limited observations. Thinking about space. The James Webb Telescope is the newest telescope. It has seen farther into space than any other. It has given scientists some of the clearest pictures they have ever seen. It has given them ideas about space that they have never thought of before. Thinking about the Big Bang. Many people today believe that science has proven the Big Bang was the beginning of the universe. The Big Bang, as defined by NASA, is, quote, how astronomers explain the way the universe began. It is the idea that it began as just a single point and then expanded and stretched to grow as large as it is right now. And it's still stretching, end quote. The James Webb Telescope has been a huge asset and has allowed scientists to understand space more. Joe Leha, an astronomer and astrophysicist at Penn State, explains, quote, the revelation that massive galaxy formation began extremely early in the history of the universe upends what many of us had thought was settled science, end quote. This new data coming from the web has altered what people thought had been proven. It is outside of the realms they thought it's outside the capability of what they thought possible. Although we as humans cannot know everything about the world, there is someone who does know everything. I believe in a God that is all-knowing and slowly revealing himself to us through his creation. As Psalms 147:4 states, quote, he determines the number of the stars. He gives to all of them their names, end quote. He knows everything about the world he created. Although we cannot understand, he does. We can have certainty in him because of his inerrant characteristics. In conclusion, although we cannot know everything about the world, in conclusion, the science that most people today have certainty in can be doubted because observations are limited, therefore conclusions can be doubted. This leads to the possibility of flawed conclusions and flawed scientific theories. In the end, I encourage you to put your trust in the creator and sustainer of all we can see or imagine. I also encourage you to keep studying science so we can continue to learn about this expansive field we know very little about. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenna. Can we give it up to our contestants one more time? I don't know about y'all, but I learned a lot tonight that I didn't know beforehand, so this was educational. And everyone say bye to our judges as they go to deliberate. Okay, so our judges are going to figure out the standings, but you also have a say in one of the awards tonight, and that is the Audience Choice Award. So if you can pull out your phones, we all have one. If you can pull that out, scan the QR code, and vote on your favorite speech from tonight. Chairs set up. And now I would like to welcome up Porter. Yes?
We can go back to that slide for a bit just to give people a chance to scan it. I'm going to give you a minute to vote. All right, well, thank you so much for those of you who spoke. I feel like this can open up some really interesting conversations on campus. I'm really excited about that. Also, hope it can open up some more bachata on campus, which would be awesome. Thank you so much. So one of the conversations that Lacey mentioned can be really difficult to have is around pornography. And my role here at Gordon is I am the care and conduct coordinator. So I help support students who need support, but I'm also the person who has conversations with people who have violated Gordon's conduct policies. And so I know some of the reason the conversation is hard to have is because of people like me. You might be afraid that if you were to be open and honest about your struggle with pornography or other behaviors that are against the life and conduct statement, that you would get in trouble and that therefore you can't be honest about your story. So I just want to remind you all of the Gordon College Conduct Amnesty Policy to help you see that we want to support you. And then I'm going to talk to you about some resources that we have on campus if sexual addiction or other behaviors are something that you want help with. So as a way of supporting and encouraging students to live healthy and faithful lives, Gordon has developed an approach to encourage godly living and reconciliation to the community standards. So students who have engaged in behaviors outside of the life and conduct statement and who are seeking to change those behaviors have the opportunity to access our on-campus support network rather than adhere to the routine disciplinary process. Issues of concern may include things such as use of illegal drugs, abuse of alcohol, use of pornography, or inappropriate sexual behavior. Requests will come before disciplinary confrontation. So this is something that if you want help with, you can go forward to a student life personnel and we will help you find support rather than pursuing it as a disciplinary measure. So that means if you want to talk to your RA about it, you can share with them and they can help you find support. If you want to talk to your RD, you can talk to them. We also have confidential resources. So if you go to the chapel office or to the counseling center, they'll be able to support you. And we just want you to know you are not alone. There are people on this campus who would love to help you, and that includes Student Life, the Counseling Center, and the chapel. If you go forward to, if you want to skip the RA and the RD, you can email me directly, and I would love to meet with you and to help you find support. So that's my email there, porter.sprigg@gordon.edu. And then there's a book that I have found very meaningful and healing in my own life, and I would recommend it to you all. Thank you. It's called Unwanted by Jay Stringer, How Sexual Brokenness Reveals Our Way to Healing. It is an incredibly redemptive and restorative book. I will have 5 copies of it in Student Life office starting next Monday. If you want to come and receive that book, you can come and ask for it, no questions asked. We'll give you the book, and if those 5 go away, I'll see if I can buy 5 more. So you can email me at porter.sprigg@gordon.edu. If you come and there is no book and you want one, let me know. Also, you can email me if you want to have a conversation about finding support overcoming unwanted behavior. Thank you.
All right, now I want to invite our speakers to come up and take a seat. This is a chance for you guys to ask them questions. So if you guys can, if you have a question, raise your hand. I will race to get to you as soon as possible. But the floor is now open for you guys. Running in heels is not easy, you guys. Okay, I'm gonna.
I'm Boston. I have a question for Lacey. Do you think there's any steps we could take to attempt to ban or prohibit pornography in our country or in our state or locally?
Okay, do you think there are any steps we can take to ban pornography from our country or locally? Lacey.
Yes, thank you for that question. Bethany and actually we were talking about this earlier for a while. She's a political science student, so we were talking about the legality of if that is constitutional, and the question was if we should ban, if it's possible to ban it. I don't think banning is necessarily like my issue with it, because I do think that kind of infringes on free speech issues. But I do think as Christians, we have a very unique opportunity to be very firm and grounded in our beliefs. And I think we've had a very watery line of Christians and sexual immorality and pornography. And I think we need to make a very clear boundary. And I would say working with people who are struggling with that or victims of trafficking and pornography and that whole industry, I think is a really cool opportunity to share the love of Christ and share the Redeemer that we've all encountered. And so I would say I don't think it necessarily needs to be banned or gotten rid of, but I think as we cut the demand, hopefully we will see less production. Hopefully that answered that.
Hi, thank you all so much for sharing. This is my question for Noelle. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I thought it was so deeply moving. I'm curious, you talked about the ability to hold the balance towards the end of your speech. What does it look like for communities, church communities, school communities to come alongside families with glass children to support them and to help maintain the balance between the two?
I'm so glad you asked. I'm really passionate about finding that solution. Since I haven't done that in practice much yet, there's still definitely learning to be done. In my experience, what has been helpful to receive from my communities has been truly, it's those passing conversations that are approached with intentionality. Instead of saying, oh, what are you doing later today? People asking me, so how have you been this week emotionally? That's a specific question. So it's really building trust in those communities and then building just a vocabulary of how to have meaningful and intentional conversation that gives balance and gives people and the ability to speak about what they're going through. I know I needed places to speak. I'm a verbalizer, I'm an extrovert, I gotta get it out of me. So I just needed people to talk to. And it has been amazing in the last year and even before, seeing people step up and embrace that challenge. Thanks.
Hang on to that mic, Noelle. So I am both an oldest sibling and a sibling of my youngest brother who has autism. So I'd actually never heard of glass children until today. So this was super helpful for me. And in my experience, I grew up He was always the center of attention for all of us because, one, he was adorable, and two, just because he had special needs. But I also wrestled with trying to hold space for that, and also being a caretaker for my other two siblings, because there's four of us, and so it's just been a lot. So first off, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story. It meant a lot to hear from you. And secondly, I just wanted to ask, in terms of your faith, how have you grown in your relationship with the Lord? Because I also know that, I don't know if you grew up in the church, but oftentimes we're trained to not just suppress our emotions, but over spiritualize our emotions. So I'm wondering how your understanding of the Lord has grown in your experience with your sister.
That's a great question as well. Thank you. Well, I did grow up in the church, so my dad's a pastor, so completely fully immersed in the church. For me, that's part of my testimony is struggling with my relationship with Abby at the same time as struggling with what it is to be a pastor's kid, if anybody else is. It can be a lot of pressure that you put on yourself and that people don't even realize they're putting on you in the same areas, people-pleasing, perfectionism, I need to be the best, I need to be good at everything. And so honestly, it's really interesting how my faith and my relationship with Abby, when our relationship took a turn towards the redemptive story of it, of me finding my passion to speak about this, to help other people, that was when my faith took a turn, because suddenly I was no longer fighting to be heard. I was fighting not just for myself at this point, but I was working alongside the church to support everybody else, to support people within the church, to support people outside of the church. And it's made me really excited to pursue the Lord. It made me want an intentional, personal relationship with him. I remember I was watching The Chosen a couple of weeks ago, and I was watching this one scene, and it's with the Roman who asks Jesus to heal his son. And he says to him, I don't even need you to come to my place. Like, I know that you can do it here. This is not a direct quote. Don't quote me on that. But he says that to him, and Jesus says to him, your faith is beautiful. And him approaching Jesus and asking for help, that really resonated with me. So recently that's been what I've been pursuing on my faith journey, is actively asking for help, because there is absolutely no shame in asking people for help. That is why there are people in your life. They want to help you and they want to support you. And if you don't ask, they will not know. So ask people for help. There is no shame in it. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Bethany. What advice do you have for people who are like anxious about dancing? Like, how do you get out of your own way to get onto the dance floor?
Thank you. I think I was definitely really, really anxious that first night at ENC. Like, it was a whole new community. I was worried about making a fool out of myself. But I think my advice would be to try to focus on the people around you who are very obviously having a good time, or just focus on the people around you more than thinking about how you're personally feeling. Like, I think if you look around on the floor, you find 4 other people that are just as anxious as you and look, just as, look the same way that you're feeling. And I think finding that unity with the people that are feeling the same way is a really good way to do it. And then I think from then on out, just focusing more on, relaxing. Just keep putting yourself in hard situations and eventually it will get easier. That would be my 2 cents.
This question is for Lacey. I'm curious, what are the reasons you think that as Christians it is so difficult for us to talk about pornography, especially if we believe that in a God who created sex to be a good thing. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
That's a really good question. I think there's a lot of shame around sexual sin and immorality and lust specifically, and I don't honestly know why we talk about sin and then we talk about sexual sin over here. But we don't talk about it. It's very shoved under the carpet because it makes us uncomfortable and it brings up a lot of hard emotions. I do think to a certain extent, kind of the world of purity culture has brought that on a little bit, and I think there's a narrative that if you've lost your virginity or you've gone too far or something has been done to you, there is a narrative that there's no going back from that, and I don't know where that came from, and that is not the gospel. And so I hope that in the years to come with our generation, that this will really be a conversation we're having and something we're able to talk about in church, in class, in families, in relationships. Because the more we don't talk about it, it's like a wound, you know? If it doesn't have the light, if it doesn't have air, it's just gonna fester and it's never gonna heal. And the enemy Satan loves that we are not talking about this because it's just making us feel worse about ourselves and we're just feeding into the lies that he's giving us. So yeah, I think I don't know why it's so separated, but I really would like it to not be. So I really hope that my discussion tonight will really get a ball rolling on campus and make people feel more comfortable to talk about pornography. Yeah, I would love to talk about it more with anyone afterwards or if you see me around campus.
Hi, I have a question for Charis. If someone had a similar experience to you in Discovery, where they really enjoyed it, was out of their comfort zone, then it's over. What would you say are ways that upperclassmen or people who have already finished their at-the-right requirement can continue to foster that confidence and connection at Discovery?
Absolutely. So I would say one of the things you can do is keep pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. That's a lot harder to do when you don't have a class that's purposefully making you do it. But taking that initiative to do the hard things that you don't necessarily want to do, but that will give you confidence, that will push you to new things, that is definitely one of the ways. Another way is to just say yes to stuff. I know we have a problem on campus of saying yes to too many things, but intentionally saying yes to things that you have time for that you would normally have said no to because of a fear. Because when you say yes to something that you're afraid of doing, when someone asks you, you have that built-in community that will support you in that difficult thing. And together you could move on and gain confidence that way.
I have a question. So this one's for Brenna. So talk about a super provocative title for a speech. Okay, excellent. So here's my question. What should our relationship with science be? If it is essentially always sort of open-ended, like how should we relate to it?
Well, like I said, I kind of have a personal connection and know that it's still very important. So I think we should still certainly study it and we should just keep learning more and more so we can advance the different areas that we can, like in the health industry or electricity or take your pick. Science is everywhere we look. And so we have to approach it in a way, we have to approach it carefully because it's not certain, but what word am I looking for? It's slowly getting us closer to certainty a little bit.
We have time for one more question.
I had another question for Brenna. I was just wondering, looking at your topic, and I was wondering if your audience or why you felt this discussion was necessary for Christians specifically or just in general in society, over trusting in science, or is this like, do you see more recently that Christians are, I don't know, putting more faith in science than in God, or what do you see happening?
I think it's more generally in society mainly because people are looking for where they can put their trust, and science is something that's everywhere. I mean, when COVID was around, they were telling us to trust what science said, but half the time that did not seem to go over very well. And so generally, but also as Christians, we need to approach it carefully to make sure we don't fall into that area of trusting it too much, because it is very easy to fall into the things of this world.
Okay, before we announce the winners, Abby Durkin, one of our judges, has a couple things to say, so I'm going to invite her up. We're going to say yay, Abby!
I'm so sorry. I was in all the way in the back and had to walk all the way down. On behalf of the judges, can we give that up for them for one more time? It was an honor to get to listen to what you guys had to say, and I am so grateful for the things that you taught us. So thank you for the time that you poured into these speeches. I know that a lot of effort goes into them, and we are so grateful for the work that you've done. So on behalf of the judges, we are super excited to announce them. Yes.
One minute, so sorry. We have another announcement. Just kidding.
Sorry to interrupt. I want to thank you all for your speeches. And Lacey, something you spoke about really struck me. You talked about what are you going to do? What are we going to do as a community? How can we get the ball rolling? And I want to say that the ball is already rolling for discussions about pornography and sexual addiction here on Gordon College's campus. In fact, I started a ministry just last semester, and we already have 4 groups of men that are operating on a weekly basis for accountability, for talking about the gospel, freedom from shame, for working together. You know, addiction isolates, and the only way to combat addiction is through community. So we are looking to start a group of women who want to meet regularly to talk about sexual addiction, to enter this struggle together as sisters. We are looking for more men to join in our community. People in our community may be on your floor, maybe your friends. They're around. They're all around campus. So this has been one of the most uplifting things that I have seen here at Gordon College, is seeing brothers come together to pray throughout the week, come together to share honestly. And it's amazing how when we come together to talk about one sin, suddenly our lives are woven together in a way that breeds emotional vulnerability, that breeds healing in a lot of different ways. So please do not be afraid to reach out to me. I think what Charis said about doing hard things is really applicable here. My name is Jesse Commanda. Stop me on the sidewalk, text me, shoot me an email. I would love to talk with you. I'd love to talk with every one of you guys. If you have a friend, if you have a family member, if you yourself are struggling, please reach out. This is, like Lacey said, really important.
All right, now I'm going to announce the winners. In third place, you knew what I was going to ask already before I asked it. Noelle Ledford. Okay, in second place, Charis, Guildford. The Audience Choice Award, the one that you all voted for, Lacey McIntyre. And in first place, keeping with the streak of winning both Audience Choice and first place, Lacey McIntyre. Can we have one more round of applause for all our speakers today?